Yeah, it looks a little different on my end today. And yes, I am in StreamYard before you guys start asking. This is a bit of a different video than usual, so well, I'll explain. Let me get into it. Hello everyone, Britton here, also known as Smoky Dude, and I'm back with another video. And today I'm doing something a little different. I recording this on OBS and not my usual QuickTime player because OBS is usually better at recording more long-form videos like the one I'm about to do today. But recently, I've been seeing a couple of people talk about books that they would like to read, 40 books they would like to read before they turn 40 years old. I saw Evie do it from She Was Only Evie, and I saw my buddy Joseph from Joseph Reads Books doing it. I ended up learning he was 37, so that was weird. I didn't peg him as 37, but we won't get out of that, not judging. I mean, he looks very good for his age. I imagine we've already talked about it, so yeah. I am 23 years old, so I have a good 17 years before I turn 40 years old. You know, I don't really like thinking about it. Not that I think 40 is a particularly bad age to be. It's just well, the idea of getting older is a little frightening to me at the moment, you know, being a very young, spry young man at the age of 23. But anyway, I'm going to be talking about 40 books that I want to read before I turn 40. There was some friends of mine asking if this was a strict list, and no, I wouldn't say it's strict. I'm not saying I'm going to be reading, you know, these exact 40 books before I turn 40. That would be kind of ridiculous. But these are books that I'm particularly excited about reading, that I haven't read yet, that I would like to have read before I turn 40 years old. So there are going to be a lot of books on here. There are actually going to be a couple nonfiction and fiction books will be on here. And there will even be a couple of comics. I hope that's fine. I didn't really see anyone say that was a problem. But as you guys know, I like comics a lot. I mean, I'm wearing my Green Lantern John Stewart shirt today. So, hopefully no one will mind. Well, I don't think so. I think we're good to go. Okay, I think we're good. But yes, these are 40 books that I would like to have read before I turn 40. Yeah, it's going to be a little more off the cuff than usual, so you're probably going to hear me say and a lot. You're probably going to hear me ramble a little bit more than often, so that's kind of why I did it on OBS, because, well, that is the best way to do more of these longer form kind of videos, as I said before. So, yeah, before I ramble on for too much longer, I suppose we should get into the list of 40 books that I would like to read before I turn 40 years old. 40 before 40, as some people are calling it. Let's get to it. So, the first one that I have, I should note, I did put whole series on here, so that might be, I'm kind of using loopholes here, because they're technically the same book, just, you know, different series. But the first book I have is actually a trilogy of books. I hope, again, no one minds here, but the trilogy I have here is the Gormenghast trilogy by Mervyn Peake, the great author and illustrator, considered by many who are usually non-Tolkien fans as the true fantasy classic. I, of course, have my healthy dose of skepticism, but I'm also looking forward to reading this book because it seems like a very unique fantasy. Probably not like any I've seen before. It's very gothic, apparently. And it also takes a lot of inspiration from Charles Dickens, which, you know, I'm a big Dickens fan. I really love Dickens a lot. And I always was curious to see what Dickens would have done if he wrote a fantasy novel. Well, yeah, I guess he technically did with A Christmas Carol. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. Gormenghast, though, a lot of people really like it. I mean, even C.S. Lewis really enjoys it. He's blurbed back here. Introductions from Anthony Burgess in my copy, who wrote A Clockwork Orange, and Quentin Crisp, who apparently was a very big intellectual back in the day, was also a friend of Mervyn Peake. Michael Moorcock also speaks very highly of the series, as does China Miéville. Again, a lot of the Tolkien separatists really like this book and think that it's really an underappreciated classic. And hopefully in 2025, I will be able to read all 3 of these books because I was gonna read Titus Grown this year, and then a bunch of shit got in the way. Yay! But next year I'm gonna make up for it, and I'm gonna read the whole trilogy. So wish me luck. I am probably going to die in the attempt, but it is the thought that counts, and I hope that Mervyn Peake will capture my imagination as he has for so many other people. So yeah, Gormenghast is really considered one of the great underappreciated fantasy classics. So yeah, Gormenghast, that's what I have for my first pick. So I'm just going to put that down. Next pick I have here is a book that I've wanted to get to for a while, and since I read Kindred this year, maybe I'll read this book next year, but we'll see. And that book is The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. This is considered one of the great modern slave narratives in the vein of Kindred, or even Beloved, which was another book that almost got on this list. I ran out of room before I could think to put Beloved somewhere, so sorry guys. No Beloved, but I will make it up to you guys, and I'll have The Underground Railroad. I've heard this book is about a literal underground railroad, because I remember when I was a kid, when I heard about this underground railroad thing, I actually thought for a minute that it was a railroad that was underground. I thought that was pretty cool. Colson Whitehead seems to think so too, and that's kind of what this book is about. So I'm really looking forward to reading this and seeing how he plays with that concept of a literal underground railroad. I'm sure there will also be discussions of slavery and its effect on the United States, and us really coming to a reckoning about slavery, kind of like how a lot of stuff about the past, the future, the present, all that fun stuff that you read about when you read a slave narrative. It's probably not going to be a fun read per se, but you know, with the literal Underground Railroad, there might be some wistfulness in it. So I'm not totally going to just say this is going to be bleak and depressing the whole time. Though I imagine it will be bleak and depressing in some parts. So, I mean, you don't really read slavery stories for like happy, optimistic stuff. It's like wanting to have a Holocaust narrative be cheerful. Well, Life is Beautiful did it. Kind of. Anyway, I'm going to put this down. Underground Railroad, though, is apparently a really good book. I've had a lot of friends tell me to go read it. I picked this up a few years ago, and I really liked this copy. I was either thinking this, or if Bill Street could talk next year, I could do that as a buddy read with the homie Darko, if he watches this. Let me know if you'd like to read Underground Railroad. Or if Bill Street could talk, we could flip a coin on it. Which, don't get me wrong, I did that a couple times with this list as well, because it was really hard to put this together. But, yeah, Underground Railroad. Let's move on. Next book I have here is a book from one of the authors who's really jumped up on my, man, I'm going to really pay attention to this guy, every book he puts out. And that book is A Brief History of Seven Killings by Marlon James. Now, I've talked about Marlon James a lot. Black Leopard Red Wolf is really jumped up as one of my favorite fantasy novels of all time. It's one of my favorite fantasies of the 21st century. Might even be one of the best fantasy novels of the 21st century. It is really a damn shame that a lot more people haven't read Black Leopard Red Wolf, though I guess it does kind of make sense because, well, it can be difficult to penetrate. I am wanting to make a video about that to help people read it, but that's not what I'm talking about today. What I'm talking about today is A Brief History of Seven Killings by Marlon James. This book won the Man Booker Prize and really put Marlon James on the map. I mean, he already wrote some pretty good books like John Crow's Devil and The Book of Night Women. Haven't read those, but I've heard they're very good. But apparently A Brief History of Seven Killings is his masterpiece. It won the Man Booker Prize, sorry. And is considered one of the best novels of the 21st century. It is apparently about the attempted assassination of the famed reggae star Bob Marley. As you might know, or might not know, I actually quite like Bob Marley. I think he has some great music, and I think he's a lot deeper than a lot of people think. There's a deep earnestness in his work, but I'm getting off track here. But A Brief History of Seven Killings is about the attempted assassination on his life in 1976. And basically, this book is Marlon James imagining what happened to the people who were involved with that. Basically, him speculating on what happened to those people. Apparently, it's a very Elroyan-like read, so it's very unapologetic, very gritty. Has that very dark, hard-edged style that I really liked in Black Leopard, Red Wolf, except it's more of a crime novel than Black Leopard, Red Wolf. But I'm really looking forward to reading this book. I'm really hoping that it's good. My buddy Raph really likes this book, so, I mean, he usually has good taste, so I think, he's never led me astray before. But Marlon James is a very good writer, and he hasn't led me astray yet. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading A Brief History of Seven Killings, because I really want to see what the fuss is about. I mean, it seems like it'll be one that'll really connect with me. At least I hope so. I really do, because it would really suck if I hyped myself up to read this, and then it turned out it sucked. But I've liked both Black Leopard, Red Wolf, and Moonwitch Spider King, which I'm reading right now, so I'm sure I'll like it. I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, Brief History of Seven Killings, that is what I got for Book 3. Book 4 is actually a comic, a manga, I should say, the first comic-related thing on this list, and that is 20th Century Boys by Naoki Urasawa. Now, if you guys have known for the last couple years, I've become a pretty big fan of Naoki Urasawa. I love Monster, I really enjoyed Pluto. I think both of them really sold me on what manga could do as a creative medium, and it wasn't just, anime titties and everyone looks like they're 20 years old. Like, you could really tell great, compelling stories in manga that are just as profound and just as moving as anything that, anybody else could do. Now, yeah, I've read some other great manga aside from Urasawa, like Berserk, Death Note, but I'm still kind of getting my feet wet in the manga world. But 20th Century Boys is one that a lot of people have told me to go read, because it is basically considered to be Urasawa's magnum opus. It's basically everything that he cares about, everything that he loves put into a comic or a manga. Sorry, I'm used to thinking in American comics terms. But I really enjoy Urasawa's style. He doesn't do what a lot of manga could do. He doesn't really stoop to a lot of the cliches that I see in manga. He has a very realistic, grounded style. His people actually look like people. He's not afraid to exaggerate. He definitely takes inspiration from people like Tezuka, who was the guy who created Astro Boy. Also what inspired Pluto, because Pluto was an Astro Boy arc before Urasawa reimagined it. But 20th Century Boys is apparently his most epic, his most deeply just insane, mind-bending work, and it's really apparently one of his best. So I'm really looking forward to reading 20th Century Boys. There was a guy who pitched it. It was an anime channel. I can't remember what the guy's name was, but he really sold me on reading 20th Century Boys, and it really made me want to read it. So yeah, I mean, that's not really much else I can say about that. But 20th Century Boys, I'm looking forward to reading it. So yeah, let's move on. Number 5, I have another book from an author. He has written a book that I love. I haven't read anything else from him because, to be honest, I'm a little more intimidated to read some of his other books. But that book I am talking about today is Pale Fire by Vladimir Nabokov. Now, you guys know me. I love Lolita. Lolita is one of my favorite books of all time. I have talked about it a lot on this channel. But I've never read another Nabokov book since then because I've heard that they're a bit difficult, a bit, maybe not dense, but very, very tricky. I've heard Gene Wolfe be compared to him, though, I think that Nabokov has a better grasp on creating unreliability without kind of sacrificing the story. But, my opinion. Don't get mad at me, Gene Wolfe fans. But Pale Fire is partly a epic poem, while also being fictional literary criticism, which is insane. I'm sure we'll see a lot of linguistic showing off from Nabokov because he was very skilled with that. I mean, he is one of the premier stylists of the English language. I mean, Lolita, to borrow from BookTube Uncle John Minton, he really blew my hair back with that book and just what he did in that book aside from playing with your perceptions and the language that he uses. And I really hope he does the same with Pale Fire because apparently Pale Fire does a very similar thing except with literary criticism and not child molestation. Anyway, Pale Fire is a book I've wanted to read for a while. I just haven't really pulled the trigger on it yet. I don't own this book just yet, so I forgot to mention before the beginning of this video. Yeah, I don't own all of these books, so yeah, I'll show the books that I own, and the ones I don't, I'll just talk about. So yeah, Pale Fire by Vladimir Nabokov is my number 5 book. It's one that I've wanted to get to for a very long time, and I hope it's good. So yeah, let's move on. Next book I have is a big book, a history book, as a matter of fact, and that is Battle Cry of Freedom by James McPherson. Now, you guys might not know this, but I am a huge Civil War nut. Like, I love learning about it. I love the history of it. I visited some of the battlefields when I was a kid. I visited the one in Pea Ridge when I was 9 or 10, for my birthday. I was very excited. I hung out with a lot of the reenactors. It was really quite fun, but I haven't really read a lot of great Civil War history, and I did think about putting Shelby Foote's Civil War trilogy on here. But I didn't want to get the angry comments talking about how he was a lost causer and the books are bad and you're gay if you read it. I didn't want any of that. So I decided to get Battle Cry of Freedom, which is considered alongside Shelby Foote's Civil War books as probably the best history of the war. And it's one that this book I actually kind of got on accident. My mom's friend gives books away to, or well, she doesn't give them away, but she gives books to colleges so that they can teach them. She gives them textbooks, and I guess this book got into the fold because she ended up giving this to me kind of by chance. And you better believe I took it. I took that chance once she gave me the chance to pick this book up. But I've really wanted to read this book for a long time because I'm a big Civil War nut. And there's a couple others I thought about putting on this list, like The Killer Angels and the Grant's Vicksburg. I thought about putting on this list because that's another one I've wanted to read for a while. Or even the Grant biography by the guy who did Hamilton. The guy, or not Lin-Manuel Miranda, but the guy, I think his name's Ron Chet now. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But but I've wanted to read his Grant book. Or maybe I'll read his Hamilton book as well, because I mean I haven't watched the musical, so please don't assassinate me in the comments. But Battle Cry of Freedom, though. Battle Cry of Freedom, I want to read it. I'm a big Civil War nut. And hey, if you guys have Civil War books you would like to recommend me, if you're also a Civil War enthusiast like I am, let me know. But from all accounts, Battle Cry of Freedom is like the 1776 of the Civil War history literature. So, yeah, really looking forward to reading this whenever I get the chance. And also, I am not against reading Shelby Foote's Civil War 3-volume history, / narrative history. I know a lot of people have contested his books, but, you know. But, yeah, no, so, yeah, Battle Cry of Freedom, that's one book I'd like to read before I turn 40. Get this here. Number 7 is another one where I kind of cheated a little bit, and it's 2 books, but they basically take place in the same world. And I'm sure my friend Carol from Falcon Reads will appreciate me bringing these up. But you know me, I can't help but bring up McCarthy, and this is the Passenger / Stella Maris series. Not really series; they're like companion books. Which are Cormac McCarthy's final novels before he passed away. I did ask my parents to get this for Christmas last year. Um, I read these, well, no, I did not read these. I wanted to get the paperback editions because, well, I prefer paperback, and to be honest, I didn't really want to deal with this hassle. But my parents got me this anyway. I still appreciate it. I really like, I really don't like the covers of these books. They're really bland. I thought really not really captures McCarthy. I think I just personally not my thing, but I do want to read these books at some point. It's going to be sad. It's going to take a while because I'm not ready to say goodbye to McCarthy's work just yet. There are also some other books I want to get to before these two. That's Cities of the Plain and The Orchard Keeper. I'd like to get to those before I read these. But it's going to be a really sad day when I read these and I complete them and I realize there won't be any more Cormac McCarthy for me to read left because his work has had a profound impact on my life, and I've talked about it a lot on this channel. I know. I won't ever shut up about it because he's that good, people. He is that good. And yeah, McCarthy is really one of the best, and it will be sad when I finish these and realize that there won't be a day that there will be a new Cormac McCarthy book or any more that I have to read rather than these two. So yeah, this one's a very bittersweet pick for me because you know I look forward to reading them, but it's also going to be a really sad day because well, Cormac's gone now, and there's more to be. There is more authors out there to go read, but none of them will be like Cormac McCarthy, though there are plenty who have tried. So yeah, I'll just put that down. Next book I have is a pretty gigantuan one from another favorite author of mine, and that is Jerusalem by Alan Moore. I mean, look at this freaking thing. It's freaking huge, man. But yeah, Jerusalem by Alan Moore. This is one of those books that I've wanted to read for a long time. And I just can't bring myself to pick it up just yet. And I mean, with big books, I have to hype myself to read them, unless they're like Stephen King books, because Stephen King chunkers are pretty easy to read for the most part. Like, I could flip through it'll probably take a couple of weeks, but I can do it in a pretty quick manner. But stuff like Jerusalem, this takes time, this takes effort. I mean, I read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell this year, which would have made it on this list if I hadn't read it already. But these books require a lot of prep, a lot of time to think about it, and definitely requires a lot of attention. So yeah, I'm going to pick the right time to read Jerusalem. And this is Alan's second book, I think his second proper novel anyways. First is called Voices of the Fire. I haven't read that one yet either. And this one I did consider putting that one on this book. But but I actually own Jerusalem for one, so I had to put it on there. But, yeah, this book is just kind of Alan Moore's feverish, strange love letter to his hometown of Northampton, apparently. And it's a pretty freaking epic book as well. It's freaking, good lord, how many pages is this damn thing? 1,266. Jesus Christ. I don't know what Alan is talking about in this book, but hopefully it will be one that I enjoy, because, you know, I've spent a lot of years enjoying Alan Moore's work, and hopefully this will be one of them. So, yeah, Jerusalem. Give it a shot. Well, I'm going to anyway. Next book I have is one Gloriana by Michael Moorcock. This is one of his better-known books. It's considered by many to be one of his best fantasy novels that aren't Mother London or the Elric Saga. The funny thing about Moorcock is that there's a lot of books of his I could have put on here, like the Time Stream series, the Von Beck series. The guy's written a lot. Jerry Cornelius, Mother London. I could have chosen a lot of those books, but I chose Gloriana because it sounded pretty cool, and it's taking place in this kind of alternate Elizabethan England, which sounds really fun. It sounds very Jonathan Strange and Mr. Gnarl-y from the sounds of it, which would be really interesting to see Michael Moorcock take that kind of voice with Gloriana, because, people generally know him for his stuff like Elric, which is very sword and sorcery inspired, very much riffing on that tradition. But Gloriana seems like his most unique fantasy novel, and it does seem like one that I would really... this is one I've wanted to read for a very long time, for a few years actually now. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But hopefully someday, I will get to... I will get around to reading... not Motherless Brooklyn, Gloriana. So, yeah. Anyway, let's continue on. Next book I have is Lord Dunsany's King of Elfland's Daughter. Next year I'm actually hoping to do a couple of pre-Tolkien fantasy novels, and I'm really hoping to put this puppy on there. But The King of Elfland's Daughter is considered a underappreciated fantasy classic. A lot of people really like this, such as H.P. Lovecraft, who is blurbed right here, and Neil Gaiman, who does the introduction. It's considered to be one of the best fantasy novels of all time that is kind of underappreciated, because Lord Dunsany is not as well loved as, say, a Tolkien or or even a Neil Gaiman for that matter. Who, again, does the introduction to this book. This is one that a lot of my friends have told me to go read over the years. A lot of my friends who really like the pre-Tolkien fantasy, they've told me to check this one out. And I am quite intrigued to see what Lord Dunsany brings to the fantasy genre. And it's really and it'll be really interesting reading a book that was written before Tolkien showed up and started, doing his work with Middle Earth. I think it would be a really good book to read. So yeah, King of Elfland's Daughter. I'm looking forward to reading it. So yeah, King of Elfland's Daughter. I'll just put that down. Next book I have is another book, and that is one I've wanted to get to for a long time. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, and that is The Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. Considered by many to be the most controversial book ever written. I mean, my God, poor Mr. Rushdie has gotten a really hard time from reading this book, or not reading it, writing it. He's gotten death threats. He has gotten literally bullied out of his country of Britain. Basically, came to America. Some of his translators were killed because of this book. And he even got stabbed in the face, losing his eyeball because of this book. That is insane. And I've wanted to read this book for years because of that. Not because he got stabbed, but I'm curious to see what offended everyone. I am not very familiar with Islam, though, so if anyone who is familiar with Islam would like to help me when reading this book, I would appreciate that a lot. But just the controversy and infamy that has surrounded this book has really interested me to see what this book is about, because as Stephen King once said, when they ban a book, it is your duty to go out and figure out what they don't want you to read. I'm slightly paraphrasing there. So, yeah, Satanic Verses is definitely a book I would like to read at some point, because I really like, well, I haven't read Salman Rushdie yet. I have seen him talk, not in person, but I've seen interviews with him and him talking with other people, like Marlon James, for instance, who is a big fan of his. I think I've even seen him talk with Neil Gaiman. I could be wrong on that. But anyway... the Satanic Verses, I did consider putting Midnight's Children on here from Rushdie, but I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the video. I'm trying to keep this to one author at a time, so I didn't want to repeat authors, because that just would have, I wanted to challenge myself for one, so yeah, there's that. Yeah, Satanic Verses is what I chose, because again, the controversy, and also I'm curious to see what it's about. I'm really curious to see what Rushdie is talking about. My nose is itching today. Next book I have is another comic, and that is Grant Morrison's Batman run. This is one that a lot of my... Now, you guys know, I am a huge Batman fan. I absolutely love him. I have plenty of shirts. I have a tattoo of Batman on my leg. I love the Batman so much. a lot of my Batman-loving friends, people who adore The Dark Knight as much as I do, have told me, Britton, you better get on your ass and read Grant Morrison's Batman. It is probably the definitive take on the character, which is kind of shocking to me, because for one, I think Batman the Animated Series is the definitive take on him. But apparently, in comics form, as far as people are concerned, Grant Morrison is the dude who got Batman right. And this was another kind of hard one, because there were a couple of Grant Morrison comics I wanted to pick, like his Animal Man run or his Doom Patrol run. But I decided on Batman because, well, one, I actually owned the part of this run anyway. And two, I love my boy Batman. You know me, I'm a big Batman fan. I've been a big Batman fan since I was a kid. And I really hope that Grant's Batman will be as good as advertised, because it would really make me sad if it wasn't. I don't think so, though. Grant Morrison is generally a good writer when he has someone to rein him in. So hopefully this will be an all-star Superman and not the Invisibles, the later Invisibles. So, yeah. So, yeah, that is my number 12. Number 13 is Astounding by Alec Neville-Lee. I'm sorry if I got your name wrong, but this is a nonfiction book about the golden age of science fiction and many of the personalities who were involved in that period of time. I have a very deep fascination with science fiction, as you guys know. I have a whole series on my channel talking about the state of science fiction and where the hell it's going, because I am so passionate about this genre. But Astounding is the story of the people who wrote science fiction, and if you read about the Golden Age people who were involved in science fiction during that period, there were a lot of really interesting people who populated the Golden Age science fiction writers, such as Robert Heinlein and Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov, L. Ron Hubbard. Even though I hate Scientology, very interesting man. A lot of really interesting people and personalities like Philip K. Dick, James Tiptree Jr., who was actually a woman named Alice Sheldon. Lots of drama, lots of insanity, lots of interesting personalities, and I want to know about them, because I'm a really big fan of that period, and also I am really interested in figuring out more about these people and their views of the world, because that's really what makes a lot of older science fiction interesting to me, is really that the personalities who were involved, which sometimes, and don't assassinate me, classic sci-fi aficionados, but sometimes these people were far more interesting than the stories they wrote. And, I mean, there are so many weird stories, like Philip K. Dick's life, or Robert Heinlein's life and views. And, you know, Arthur C. Clarke was pretty out there as well. James Tiptree Jr. murdered her husband, then she shot herself. I don't think she shot herself, correct me if I'm wrong. But a lot of, again, Philip K. Dick, Harlan Ellison. Need I say more? Yeah, Astounding is definitely going to be talking about a lot of those people, a lot of their personalities, and how they influenced the field and how they felt about the world, and I want to read that book as soon as possible, because, well, I'm a big sci-fi geek, and I really love learning, and I really love history as well, so two loves. I'm hoping it's good, well, until I get around to reading Astounding. Hopefully it goes well. Number 14 is the Underworld USA trilogy by James Ellroy. This was one of those where I had to flip a coin on it between just putting American Tabloid on here or putting the whole trilogy. I ended up getting the short end of the stick, and I'm putting the whole trilogy on here. James Ellroy, alongside Dennis Lehane, for my money, is one of the best crime writers who is still alive today. Though his style is not as approachable as Dennis Lehane, Ellroy is called the demon dog of crime literature, demon dog of American literature, for good reason, because a lot of his work is pretty crude, rude, unapologetic, and I really enjoy that. So yeah, this series of books are about the JFK assassination, which is a subject I am quite fascinated in. I have actually been to the assassination site in Dallas. I know, big flex from Britain here, you know. But It's apparently about a conspiracy and how it might have happened if there was a genuine conspiracy that took the life of John F. Kennedy. They're also moving through history, very much like Brief History of Seven Killings, from what I've heard. Very much goes into the mafia, the CIA, and it kind of goes all the way to, I think, his brother's assassination, or even further than that. But the first book, American Tabloid, is about the JFK assassination. That I know for certain. But I'm looking forward to the series. I'm really interested to see how James Ellroy does the JFK assassination. Some of these other big moments in history, like the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., but they are not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of racism in his work. There's a lot of sexism in his work. There's a lot of homophobia in his work. I mean, it does show that these people are pretty bad, but he is not going to go out of his way to condemn it or show it as wrong, because he's not interested in that. But yeah, Underworld USA trilogy, I really want to read that at some point. Let's move on before I get too much into this. Number 15 is one I brought up in another list that I did. That is Mason and Dixon by Thomas Pynchon. Thomas Pynchon is one I've really wanted to get into. Well, I guess I have technically got into him. I did read Inherent Vice. Liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I thought it was a really interesting book. Reminded me a bit of Philip K. Dick, except for some reason Pynchon is respected by the literary elite, and Philip K. Dick is still this just kind of weird sci-fi writer who was kind of drugged up out of his mind. But I liked it, though. And Mason and Dixon really interests me because, one, I'm quite fascinated with the colonial history of America before, we became America. And I'm really fascinated by... And I'm really interested in seeing, because apparently Pynchon really did his research, and he really got into exploring the language, to the point where the language is very much like that period. I would really love to see how he does that, but I'm actually more interested in reading this. This might be a hot take to the Pynchon fans, but I'm actually I'm looking forward to reading this more than Gravity's Rainbow. I know, it's shocking to the Pynchon fans. I'm probably going to get assassinated when I put this video up. But I really want to read Mason and Dixon because it sounds like a book I would really enjoy. And a lot of people have told me it's really good. So maybe I'll read some other Pynchon books before Mason and Dixon. But Mason and Dixon is the one I really want to get to, the one I'm really working towards. So we'll see how that goes. I suppose we should just move on. Next book I have is a pretty old sci-fi classic, and that is one I've wanted to read for a while. The Star's My Destination by Alfred Bester, or Tiger Tiger if you're across the pond. Considered one of the classic sci-fi books of all time. It's really well loved by people like Neil Gaiman, who did the introduction. Michael Moorcock really likes it. Oh god, who else really likes it? A lot of science fiction writers really like this. I think Ursula K. Le Guin also really enjoys this series, enjoys this book as well. I've heard it be pitched as the Count of Monte Cristo in space, which, that could be fun. I do love me a good revenge story when it's done well. Bester is considered really good, very literary, very ahead of his time in a lot of ways, even above guys like, Heinlein and Clark, which, I like those guys. I'm a bit skeptical of those claims, but I'm looking forward to find out if Bester truly joins them, or if he is just a pretender. I really hope that The Star's My Destination is really good, because it would really suck if I didn't like it, because I bought this book like 4 years ago, and I wanted to read it, but then COVID hit, and I got really depressed, and I didn't get around to this book. But one day I'll get to The Star's My Destination. So, yeah, I'll just put this down. But I really want to get to that book at some point. So, yeah. That's all I got to say. Number 17 is The Sun by Philip Meyer. I don't know. Considered by a lot of people I've heard it be compared to one of my favorite books, which is Blood Meridian. It is another Texas novel. It's just Texas. So many freaking Texas books. They're spoiled for content over there. It's not fair. As an Oklahoman, I'm calling foul. It's not fair Just so much Texas literature and not enough Oklahoma. It's just what do we got? We got the freaking Outsiders and Grapes of Wrath, which the fucking people go to California from Oklahoma. So fuck you. But anyway, The Sun by Philip Mayer. I've heard it be compared to Blood Meridian, though apparently it's more about it's more like a family saga, and I'm a big fan of family sagas. East of Eden is one of my favorite books of all time. So I'm not against reading The Sun, but I've heard this one is really good, and I've heard it be compared to McCarthy, and I hope to find out if it is comparable to McCarthy or if it's not, because if it's not, oh, that's gonna suck. But I'm really looking forward to reading The Sun, and I'm hoping it's gonna be good. So, yeah. I'll move on. Next one is another series, but I have it in one book, and that is a Veraconium series by M. John Harrison. Another foreword from Neil Gaiman. I've gotten like 3. I've got 3 so far that have Neil Gaiman forewords. What the hell? But anyway, Veraconium. A lot of people have told me to read this. It's kind of like a cult series. I read Light by M. John Harrison, which I really liked. I really thought was good. I'll link my review down below. And I also read his book, the Centauri Device, which I thought was fine, but it was kind of generic. But Veraconium is considered to be like his best work, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. Neil Gaiman really likes it. Angela Carter really liked it. I think Michael Moorcock also likes this. China Mieville really likes this. Jeff Vandermeer does as well. This is apparently very Dying Earth. I've heard it be compared to Jane Wolfe, which for the Wolf fans, maybe you should pick up Veraconium, because I've heard it's very similar. Not the unreliable narrator stuff, but apparently the Dying Earth setting is very reminiscent of Gene Wolfe. But another one that's kind of held by the Tolkien separationists as a really good fantasy novel. Novels and short stories. This is the whole series in one book, which I'm really glad they did this, by the way, because I really did not want to check out. I did not really want to go out and hunt down the old copies, which have really great pulpy artwork, but just not really. It probably would have cost a lot of money, and to be honest, I don't really want to deal with that. So my buddy Micah really likes this series. My friend J.G. Keeley really likes this series as well. So I'm hoping it's good, because but I like Light, so I'm hoping it's more like Light than the Centauri Device, because Centauri Device is again kind of generic, I thought. So yeah, Veraconium. Speaking of Angela Carter, I brought her up earlier. I actually have her short story collection, The Bloody Chamber. It's the next pick of this list. Angela Carter's another one that I've wanted to read for a very long time. I just haven't gotten around to her yet. I really want to check out her style, because apparently she really brings back the old fairy tales, like Grimm's fairy tales, for adults, basically. And I've heard her be compared to Susanna Clarke, which could be fun. I've heard she was a big inspiration for people. Neil Gaiman, Michael Moorcock really likes her. Kelly Link, whose foreword is right here. This is kind of a horror, dark fantasy book. I want to check out some of her other ones, but The Bloody Chamber is one that people have told me to check out first. And they have this new Penguin edition, which is really nice. I picked this up at my local bookshop. I really would like to read this book at some point, and some of Angela Carter's other books. But The Bloody Chamber is considered one of her best, and a really good place to start. So I'm really looking forward to reading Angela Carter's The Bloody Chamber, because I've heard it's really good. So yeah, I'll just put that down now. Next book I have is another one I've wanted to try for a while, and that is The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea by Yukio Mishima. Kind of like the Satanic Verses, I've wanted to check this book out on account of the crazy life of the author. I mean, Yukio Mishima, this dude was fucking insane. Like, he was really into Bushido, which is basically samurai ethics. and was a real big fan of the Imperial Japanese government. So here's what this fucking crazy guy did, aside from writing some banger novels from, according to a lot of people, really wrote some great books, right? So here's what this crazy bastard did. He literally tried to overthrow the Japanese government and bring back the emperor. Failed miserably, and when he realized it wasn't really going to go anywhere, he literally committed seppuku, aka ritual suicide. You might have seen it in some samurai films. Need I say more? I know that his books aren't necessarily about that, but I really want to read at least one of his books, and the one I decided to pick was The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, because that's one of his more known books, and that's one where people have told me to start, aside from Confessions of a Mask, which is apparently another really good one. That was another one that was tempting to come on the list. But Mishima, I'm really curious to see how he writes. I'm really curious to see how he expresses himself, and I really want to kind of know what's going on in that weird, twisted mind of his, because, I mean, if a guy is literally going to try and overthrow the government, and don't send the I'm probably going to be on an FBI watch list after this, after saying this, but I kind of want to know what he has to say about things. Oh, man. Oh, God, please don't arrest me. Anyway, yeah, Yukio Mishima, interesting guy. I want to check out his books. Enough said. Next book I have is John Krakauer, Under the Banner of Heaven by John Krakauer, which is apparently a story about the Mormon church, a bunch of extreme Mormons, not regular Mormons, so don't get mad, Liam. I really love Into the Wild. It is one of my favorite nonfiction books of all time, and John Krakauer really turned that book into not really just a wow, look at how idiotic this guy was for going out in the middle of nowhere, and he was. He's not stupid. I mean, he's not gonna try and overlook that. He was an idiot. He did. I hate to speak ill of the dead, but he was kind of a dumbass to go out in the middle of the woods without knowing what the hell he was doing. And, well, the results are predictable. But he managed to make it into a tragedy. You really feel for this kid. He just wanted a more meaningful life. And you know what? Who doesn't want that? I can empathize with that. And it makes you really sad. It makes you really care about this kid, even though from what you hear is from secondhand accounts of people who met him. Alexander Supertramp, nonetheless, is one of the stupidest fucking nicknames I have ever heard. Come up with a better fucking alias. McCandless, if you can hear me from the abyss. But anyway, I'm going off of another tangent. Under the Banner of Heaven, though, sounds really cool. A bit more of a crime book, true crime book, about the Mormon Church. Also kind of a history of Mormonism, which you know, could be of interest for me. I actually met some Mormons earlier this year, though they stopped talking to me. I think it's because they realized I wasn't going to convert to their religion. But this book seems really interesting, and after loving Into the Wild, I really want to get to Under the Banner of Heaven at some point, and hopefully I'll really love this book too. So yeah, I'll just put this down now. But yeah, Under the Banner of Heaven seems like a really cool book. Next one I have is The Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. My friend T at an Erudite Adventure absolutely adores this book and tells me to read it, or he has told me to go read it. This is one I've wanted to read for a very long time, though, because it's kind of like how I describe Killer the Flower Moon, basically like literary history or literary journalism, for lack of a better word. But this book is about the Chicago World Fair in 1900, and also how the notorious serial killer H.H. Holmes basically got involved in that and managed to sneak people into his house of horrors, for lack of a better word. I didn't mean for that to be alliterative, but anyway. Apparently this book is really good. One of the best historical books of all time. I mean, it literally won the National Book Award. It says it right there. I know you can't really see it. It's very shiny. I'm sorry. But this book, though, is apparently the shit. I have heard it basically be described as if James Ellroy wrote a history book. Need I say more? That sounds freaking awesome. I want to see that. I want to see that a lot, actually. But yeah, Devil in the White City. My friend T tells me to read it. It's a book I've wanted to read for a long time. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, much like with a lot of these other books. So, yeah. Ugh. But yes, Devil in a White City. It's a book I want to read at some point. Number 23 is Discworld by Terry Pratchett. Not really a particular book, just the whole thing, just Discworld in general. Now I'm not going to count the whole series here, but I'm basically talking about the whole series, or at least part of it. I'll count when I read a book. But a lot of people, this is one of those books, kind of like the Robin Hobb series, or good God, what's another popular fantasy people tell me to go read? Fonda Lee's, Jade books, Discworld. Everyone is like, Britain, drop everything you're reading, drop everything that you're doing. Fuck all that. Drop everything you're doing, read Discworld. And I'm like, all right, I'm okay. It's a big series, though. I don't know where to start. And a bunch of people have helped me with that. So thank you, Derry, Alan, Raph. I appreciate you all. But, yeah, it's just, it's very big, and I had read some reviews, and it just didn't sound interesting to me at first, because, it just sounded like a bunch of bad fantasy jokes just slapped into a book, and I remember reading Good Omens a few years ago, or a long time ago, when I was really kind of getting back into fantasy, and I wasn't really impressed with it. I just thought it was like, whatever, it's fine. But I've read a couple of lines from Terry Pratchett. I'm like, okay, dude's cooking, guy's cooking. He's got some good ideas. Yeah, I would like to read. So it has gotten me interested. And again, people like Raph and Derry and some other people have gotten me interested in at least trying Discworld before I just, slap it off into the distance and tell it to go away. But I would like to read Discworld at some point. It's considered one of the great fantasies of our time. A lot of people like it. Neil Gaiman especially so. Brandon Sanderson even likes it. He considers Pratchett his favorite fantasy writer, which is interesting. Gaiman was actually a close friend of Terry Pratchett before he sadly passed away in 2015. I really do hope to get to this, and I hope I enjoy it as much as other people have, because, I know I give off this, grouchy, cynical vibe, but really, I'm a teddy bear. Like, I want to get involved with, I want to get in on the hype trains. I am skeptical of hype trains, but I want to enjoy these things alongside people. I don't go into books wanting to hate them. So, yeah, Discworld, Terry Pratchett, it's on the list. You guys got your Discworld reference. Let's move on. Another book is another fantasy. It is Blood in the Mist by Hope Merleys. My buddy Robin, in particular, is a big fan of this book. It's his favorite fantasy novel of all time. Another pre-Tolkien fantasy. Very inspirational, apparently, for Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which I thought that book was absolute crackerjack. It's very much in that English fairy tale type of tradition of fantasy that has kind of gone from Dunsany to Merleys to Neil Gaiman has played a little bit with that in his book, God damn it, what's it called? Fuck, I can't remember it. Stardust, I got it. And, of course, Susanna Clarke with Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. But yeah, my friend Raph also really liked it, and it's actually another book I'm really hoping to get to with my pre-Tolkien reads I'm hoping to do next year, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, thanks Robin for recommending me this book. Also my friend J.G. Keeley really likes this book too, so there's that as well. But yeah, apparently it's one of the good pre-Tolkien novels. Neil Gaiman really likes it. He did an introduction of it, which, my God, what does that man not do forewords or introductions to? But I digress. Blood in the Mist. Sounds like a pretty good book. Yeah, let's move on. Third comic I'm talking about on this list is Enigma by Peter Milligan and Duncan Fegredo. This is one of those Vertigo series. As you guys might know or might not know, I'm a huge early 90s and Vertigo dork. I freaking love Preacher. I love Transmet. I really love a lot of those books from that period of time. Vertigo kind of blew off the chains of what American comics could do. Really was one of the first creator-owned models that really took off. Alan Moore, well, he technically didn't work there because he basically gave the middle finger to DC and basically went off to do his own Alan Moore things. But apparently one of the few that kind of slipped through the cracks was Enigma by Peter Milligan. I haven't read a lot of Milligan. I've read a couple of his things. I've read his Human Target series, which was pretty good. And I also read, oh god, what's it called? Britannica, I think is what it's called. It was one of the, it was one of the Valiant books, which was fine. But I've heard that, Enigma is considered one of the underappreciated gems of the Vertigo early 90s era, with art from Duncan Fegredo, who did some really great work on Mike Mignola's Hellboy. So yeah, it's a I've heard it's really good. So yeah, Enigma. I was either this or his Shade the Running Man comic run, which I haven't found anything about because DC has been really bad at putting out stuff. Apparently they put out a new version of Enigma a few years ago, but from Dark Horse instead of Vertigo for whatever reason. But Enigma, I really would like to get to at some point. So yeah, Enigma from Peter Milligan and Duncan Fegredo. My friend Keeley, in particular, really enjoys this, and he told me this rivals Watchmen, and I'm like, okay, buddy. I highly doubt that, but I'll see it just based on what you've said. So yeah, and Duncan Fegredo is a very talented artist, so that also helps a lot too. Number 26 is Valis by Philip K. Dick. As you guys know, I'm a huge Philip K. Dick nut. I love A Scanner Darkly. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is also really good. The Man in the High Castle. I also read Ubik earlier this year with Naomi Darko, which was a lot of fun. I really love Philip K. Dick, and there's a lot of his books that I was really tempted to put on this list, like the Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch, or Flow My Tears, The Policeman Said, or some of his other better-known books that I haven't gotten to yet. But I decided on Valis, because Valis is considered his magnum opus, and really where Philip K. Dick kind of went insane. He basically thought that he saw some sort of spiritual vision, and he decided to write about it. So that's where we got Valis from. And not really much else to say. It's part of a trilogy. I guess I should just put the trilogy on here. But it's probably his most philosophical, spiritual work. So I'm really curious to see what he has to say. And either it is going to be absolutely brilliant, or it is going to be absolute trash, and the drugs really took a toll on old Phil during the later years of his life. Both options are very possible. So yeah, Valis / the Valis trilogy, I'm going to put that on there because I love Philip K. Dick, and I think he's really a great mind. One of the best science fiction writers of all time. So, yeah, there you go. Number 27, this was another coin flip one, Bethesda Earthsea Saga by Ursula K. Le Guin. Le Guin is one of my big blind spots when it comes to reading fantasy and science fiction. It was either this or Left Hand of Darkness. I did a coin flip. It landed on Earthsea, so we're going with Earthsea. And a lot of people tell me to read Earthsea. So yeah, I would like to read Earthsea at some point. So yeah, I mean, not really much else to say, but I've heard it's very classical pieces of fantasy. Le Guin is a really good writer from all accounts. I actually got her book, let me get it over here. Language of the Night. I'm thinking of sneaking this in for a read next year, if possible, which is apparently her essays about science fiction and fantasy. So I'm really curious to see what she has to say. Oh dear. Well, that didn't work. I am considering getting the Earthsea omnibus that has that Charles Vess artwork, because I think Charles Vess is a really gifted artist, and he's really good at capturing very whimsical fantasy stuff. He's done a lot of work with Neil Gaiman. He did parts of the Sandman. He actually did one of my favorite issues of the Sandman, which is the Midsummer Night's Dream, which is one of the Shakespeare ones. But yeah, Earthsea. I would like to get to it at some point. So yeah, let's move on. Number 28 is Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. Yeah, I can hear the groans now. I've heard a lot of I know a lot of people kind of consider this a dude bro book. Looking at you, Steve Donahue. I'm kind of fascinated with this for the same reason I'm fascinated by Thomas Pynchon. It's so weird, so out there. I kind of want to see what all the fuss is about. And David Foster Wallace, I've seen interviews with the guy. I've read a couple articles from him and about him, and he seemed like a really interesting guy, very troubled guy as well. I mean, he did some stuff which I'm not going to get into here, but a lot of people really like Infinite Jest though, and I would really like to get to Infinite Jest at some point, because it sounds really weird and off the wall and kind of crazy, and I really like that stuff. So yeah, I'm really hoping that Infinite Jest will be a winner, hopefully, because I mean, there's not really much else for me to say about Infinite Jest aside from very well known, very beloved postmodern novel. I've heard it has a lot of footnotes, so that's a thing. But I did read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, so it turns out I don't hate footnotes. Terry Pratchett also uses footnotes, apparently, so I forgot to mention that, so sorry, Discworld fans, don't get mad at me. But Infinite Jest, though, is considered to be really good, so I would really like to see what David Foster Wallace has to say and why so many people really like this book. John Green is a big fan of this book, and I like the Vlog Brothers. I like John Green's books, believe it or not. Don't get mad at me, but I do like his books a lot. But yeah, Infinite Jest. Number 29 is The Aeneid by Virgil. I was actually thinking of putting some other ones kind of like this, like Metamorphosis or, oh god, what else is another epic? Basically, I had to pick between The Aeneid and Metamorphosis, and I just chose The Aeneid because why not? This is basically a kind of fan fiction of sorts of the Odyssey. This is about one of the people who was involved, or not the Odyssey, the Iliad. This basically is one of the soldiers, I think, who got left behind during the Trojan War and basically went off to do his own thing. And this is the Aeneid. This is the guy who the Aeneid is named after. Virgil is considered one of the great epic poets, alongside guys like Ovid, who wrote the Metamorphoses, John Milton, T.S. Eliot, who did The Wasteland, which is a great poem. He's influenced a lot of people, and I really want to see what this is about. And a lot of people who read fantasy are often told to read some of the classic mythology stuff, like La Morte d'Arthur, and this, and Metamorphosis, and the Aeneid is just the one I chose for right now, because, or the Poetic Edda by, well, that's the Norse saga, the Norse Edda, but the Aeneid is the one I'm choosing right now, so, yeah, there you go. But yeah, the Aeneid, let's get into it, or, well, I'll get to it before I'm 40, hopefully. We are in the lower 10s. Let's get into it. Number 30 is Mythago Wood by Robert Holdstock. This is one of those fantasies that I've heard is really unique, really strange. A lot of people really like it. Joe Abercrombie really likes it. Neil Gaiman, again, he did a foreword for it, which color me shocked there. Michael Moorcock really likes it, who's another guy, just really, like, what doesn't that guy like that isn't J.R.R. Tolkien? But Mythago Wood really sounds interesting because apparently it has a very sinister forest and a lot of mythological references and a very deeply fantastic feeling style. It sounds like it would appeal to me because I like a lot of more literary fantasy, is I suppose what you should call it. My friend Owen Edwards really likes it, and my friend Robin, I think, likes it as well. So, yeah, I've heard it's really good. It's a book I would like to get to before too long, though, again, I don't know when. Hopefully before I turn 40. That would be really nice. So, yeah, not really much else to say about that. Number 31 is Light in August by William Faulkner. I wanted to get a Faulkner book in here somewhere. It was either this, As I Lay Dying, or like The Sound and the Fury. I would like to read Light in August first, because apparently it's one of his like less dense books. My friend Brian at Bookish Texan really likes Faulkner a lot, so if he could hit me up with some Faulkner Rex, let me know. But yeah, no, Light in August by William Faulkner. Not really much I'll say, because I haven't really heard too much about this book. I did try a Faulkner novel long time ago when I was a teenager, and I just kind of bounced off of it. Not because I didn't like it or anything. I don't know if I was really in the headspace for it. I think it was As I Lay Dying, but I could be wrong. But yeah, Faulkner's one of those I've really wanted to try. I know he was an inspiration for Cormac McCarthy. I know a lot of Southerners really like him because he wrote a lot about the South. He even created his own county of Mississippi, which apparently the world building is so great and so vast in it, it could rival an epic fantasy novel. So I'm just like, all right, I'm curious to hear about that. But yeah, Light in August is one I would like to read at some point, and one of the pillars of American literature that I haven't tried yet. So yeah, looking forward to it. Number 32 is what we talk about when we talk about love by Raymond Carver. This is one I've wanted to try for a very long time. Carver's kind of like Bukowski, where I like him in theory. He does a lot of like these kind of gritty, not really hard-boiled, but like I would say like Bukowski's more hard-boiled, but very like dirty, transgressive, very kind of Burroughs-esque stuff. Though apparently he's more like on the emotional, personal side, and I know a lot of writers who really love what we talk about when we talk about love, and there's a lot of people who just like that book in general. It's one I would like to read. It's kind of like The Things They Carried, which I just recently wrapped up. That's like one of the best short story collections of all time. Kind of a slice of life, but kind of like gritty. I've heard him be called like an American Chekhov. Anton Chekhov, the great playwright and short story writer. This is one I've wanted to try for a very long time, but I just haven't gotten around to yet, so, for reasons. Yeah, let me move on. Number 33 is, this was one I kind of switched out a couple times, but I kind of landed on this one because, I had actually been talking to Philip Chase recently, and he was telling me about this book. He was telling me about Beowulf, but he also brought up this book as well. We were talking about it recently, and that is Grendel by John Gardner. My friend Carol also likes this book. I watched a little of his review, but he started going into spoilers, and I was like, I know the story of Beowulf, but I'd like to figure out what's going on in this book myself. I've read like some of the Amazon sample, and there's a little epigraph of William Blake. So if you epigraph William Blake, that's a good sign in my book, because I love William Blake a lot. But Grendel is apparently the story of the monster from Beowulf, but from the monster's perspective. They're even making a movie out of this with Jeff Bridges as the titular character, and I saw some designs the other day, and they looked absolutely outstanding. But okay, I'm talking about the book. Yeah, Grendel looks fun, or maybe not fun. I've heard it's really dark and bleak, but I've heard it's a really good book, and John Gardner apparently was also a scholar of medieval literature, so the guy probably knows what he's talking about in this book, and I really hope it's a good one. It's very short, it's not very long, and I know there's people who've read it for school. This is just one of the ones that just kind of slipped through the cracks, I guess, because I read a lot of classic books when I was in school, just kind of as a beat to the punch before teachers make me read it, which I probably would have anyway, because, I like reading things. But yeah, no, Grendel, though, is a really interesting book, from what I've heard. And I want to read it at some point. There were a couple books that kind of slipped in here, like The Good Lord Bird, which is like right, where is it? It's right there. There it is, right by the shirt. There it is. I did think about putting that book in here, but I decided Grendel, because I'm like, Grendel's really calling me. But I do want to read The Good Lord Bird as well. Next book, though, is one I own. It's been a minute since we've gotten to some that I own. That is The Broken Sword by Paul Anderson. Kind considered to be a pretty underappreciated classic. My friend Joseph, who did one of his own videos like this, Michael Moorcock really likes this book and describes it as even better than Lord of the Rings. Came out at the same year as Fellowship of the Ring, and if you ask certain people, like Michael Moorcock, this one's even better than Fellowship of the Rings. I don't know if I'll agree with that, but I do want to get to it because apparently it's very Norse-inspired. I am a huge sucker for Norse mythology, more Norse-related things. The Poetic Edda, give me that shit, I will read it. Like Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. I am definitely going to read that book at some point. But The Broken Sword is apparently a very underappreciated classic of the fantasy genre. Again, came out the same year as Fellowship of the Ring. Talk about rotten luck right there. Just for Paul Anderson, really poor guy. I really feel bad for him. I mean, he is very much a cult favorite. He's more known for his science fiction work. I know he was praised by guys like Asimov and Robert Heinlein. I think Arthur C. Clarke as well. But Michael Moorcock really likes this book and says it's one of the best fantasy novels of all time. It also is apparently what inspired Stormbringer, so I'm really curious to see where this book goes. Another one I'm really thinking about getting to next year is part of the pre-Tolkien list that I'm working on. But yeah, Broken Sword by Paul Anderson. Apparently it's a good book. So I'm getting down to the final 5. Let's get into them. I am starting to get kind of worn out here. I've been going on for a while. My lord. Oh, my lord. It's been an hour and 10 minutes. Jesus Christ. Okay, let's get into them before too long. I'll try and keep this short. Well, I won't make any promises. King Leopold's Ghost by Adam Hochschild, I think is how it's pronounced, is a history of the Congo and the Belgians' involvement, King Leopold's involvement in the Congo, which is one of the most monstrous crimes ever committed, rivals the Holocaust and the Holodomor as one of the just most disturbing, horrifying thing that has ever happened in human history. Was an inspiration for Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, and Heart of Darkness is one of my favorite books, and I wanted to see where he got some of his ideas. Well, this book is about where he got a lot of his ideas from. I hate to state the obvious here. But, King Leopold's Ghost is about the Belgians' involvement in the Congo and also the ramifications of that through history and how basically no one knew about it until, like, Joseph Conrad and other people who had been there, who had saw it, came back and wrote about it in books such as Heart of Darkness and, just books like that. I don't really know how else to talk about it, but this is a book I really wanted to get to for a few years. One of those history books I wanted to get to for a few years. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So, King Leopold's Ghost is one I would love to get to at some point. Move on before I go on for too long. Number 36 is The Conquest of Gaul by Julius Caesar. This is his memoir of his, Conquest of Gaul. It's been told by a couple of friends of mine that this might be the best military memoir of all time. It's been told to be one of the best accounts of what it was like to be in ancient Rome, written by Julius Caesar. Now, is a lot of it embellished? Most likely. But, it's apparently a very entertaining read as well. So I'm hoping that it's good, because if it's not good, again, that would really suck, and I would really be sad, because I've had people hype this book up to me a little bit, and I want it to be good. So, yeah, moving on. Next book I have is another novel, and that is Lincoln and the Bardo by George Saunders. My friend Amanda really likes this book. I have a lot of friends, actually, who really like this book. Another one I've wanted to get into for a few years. As you guys know, like I said before, big Civil War nut. This is not really about the Civil War, but it is about a part of the Civil War. It is about Abraham Lincoln, who, for my money, is the greatest president of all time, who wasn't George Washington. This is about his son, who unfortunately passed away. His name was Willie. He died when the war was going on. Really tore up the Lincolns. Mary Todd Lincoln was especially affected. She had struggles with mental health throughout her life, And once she lost her son and eventually her husband, she kind of went off the rails, and was made to live in a couple of asylums for some time. But this is about this is more of a ghost story. This is about Willie, and this is his first novel, and it's done in a very experimental way. Like, just like, hold on, look at this, just look at that. A little intimidated by it. But I'm really hoping that it's good because I really like this period of time, if you didn't tell already. And I've heard this book is really, it's either people think it's masterful or they think it's just absolute tripe. There's no real in between. And I mean, one of the reasons is look at that. And it's just it's very experimental in tone. But I'm hoping it's good. It'd be really nice if it's good. I mean, Colson Whitehead, who I mentioned earlier, is blurbed here, so there he is. And Zadie Smith liked it, so I mean, it's fine. But I've heard this book is really good. I really want to try it. And again, I'm a big Civil War nut, so again, this isn't really about the Civil War, but I really like that period in time. And I'm really curious to see another Man Booker Prize winner. I didn't even notice that. That's interesting. But I'm really hoping that that this book is as good as advertised, because again, it would really suck if I just didn't take to it, and I've had this book for like 4 or 5 years now. So yeah, so there you go. Lincoln on the Bardo, or Lincoln in the Bardo. I can't fucking do shit today. Number 38 is A Night in the Lonesome October by Roger Zelazny. I was either thinking of putting this or the Amber books. And, Joseph already did the Amber books, so I'll put in A Night in the Lonesome October. This is another one I've wanted to read for a few years. It was recommended by Jay from, it's Jay Kennedy. It's from, I can't remember his name at the moment, his channel name. Screw it, I'll probably put it in the comments or something later on. But anyway, this book really sounded cool to me because apparently it has like a lot of literary characters who basically go on this game, and there also might be Lovecraftian deities involved, and it sounds really awesome, and I want to know more about that. A lot of people say to start with Amber, but I don't know. I hope I'm really more attracted to The Night in the Lonesome October before I get to Amber, but that's just me. Number 39 is Julian Comstock, A Story of 22nd Century America by Robert Charles Wilson. I actually learned about this book from SFF 180, who is a big fan of this book. It's one of his favorite science fiction reads. And from the sound of it, it sounds like one of my favorite video game franchises, Fallout, and it sounded really cool. It's kind of like a weird steampunk future, though, instead of the past. And I don't really remember too much, but from what Thomas talked about, it sounded really cool. It sounded really interesting. And I really was intrigued by it, and I really wanted to see it. And I really wanted to check it out. And I really do hope to still check it out before I turn 40. But it sounds like a book that would really be up my alley. It sounds very pulpy. It sounds very action adventure-y. But it also could be really interesting in terms of the ideas. Because I do like pulp stuff. But, with science fiction, I like the idea and the character kind of combine. You can watch The State of Science Fiction about that. Right, I talk a lot about that. But yeah, Julian Comstock is one I would like to read. This book just sounds really fun, really enjoyable. Not really much else to say. Let's just get to the last book. And the 40th book. It's been, you've journeyed to this point. The 40th book is Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. It is a comic. It is not a book. I've been told about this comic for years. My friends Troy and David and Imperious Rex have told me about it. I've had other friends at my local comic shop tell me about it. Carlos and Yolanda from StoryTube really like this one. All right, I think it's Carlos who likes it. I don't remember. But a lot of people told me to check this comic out, and I really need to. I'm really sorry. It's just there's so many books and comics, man. There's so many. There's so many out there. It's not fair. It's not fair at all. But yeah. Number 40 is Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. Apparently, they're very, like, dark, kind of spooky, folkloric kind of reads. Very fairy tale-esque, but kind of like spooky fairy tales. Not really like, Snow White or any, Sleeping Beauty or any of that. More Angela Carter than Disney, from what I've heard. And it's in comics, and I've seen some of Emily Carroll's illustrations. I read her comic adaptation of, what is that book called? Speak. Speak is what it's called. I saw she did the comic adaptation for that, which was pretty good. I remember liking it a lot. I liked her artwork a lot in that. And I hope that this book proves to be just as enjoyable as that one. Even though I was kind of iffy on the actual book of Speak, the comic though is really I really enjoyed it. But Through the Woods sounds really interesting. It sounds really spooky. It sounds a lot of fun. Or maybe like a dark, spooky fun. I mean, it's, I don't know. It's definitely a book I would like to get to before I turn 40. And, that's it. And don't get me wrong, guys. This got really hard to pick just all of these. I mean, there were books I had to leave out, like Beloved, Essex County, which you can see right there. River Speak Out, the Yiddish Policeman's Union. There were a bunch of books. The Jazz Ear by Ben Ratliff, Hell's Angels by Hunter S. Thompson. There were a lot of books I left out. But these are 40 books that I would like to read before I turn 40. I didn't expect for it to go this long, so I apologize. I ramble a lot. But I hope that my near hour and freaking, how long has this been? Almost 21 minutes, an hour and 21 minutes. I'm probably going to edit some of this down, get rid of some of the filler parts. But I hope my passion has seen you guys through. These are 40 books I would like to read before I turn 40, which is in about 17 years from now. So I have 17 years to read all 40 of these books before I, unless God forbid something horrible happens. But I'm really hoping to get to a lot of these books. Some of these books I'm actually hoping to get to next year, but I've already brought those up. But yeah, that was a lot. I don't know how Evie and Joseph didn't keep these under an hour. That's impossible. I'm sorry, guys. I have failed the mission. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Let's get through it. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Check me out on Twitter and also on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews, which are probably more coherent than the books than the one you're hearing right now. To show how freaking brain fried I am, because I can't word right now. It's a long time. This take a lot of effort, people. Instagram, Blue Sky, Discord. I'm on those. Come check me out. I'm not really on Blue Sky though. So go on Discord and Instagram, because I am on those very much more often, and find me there and chat with me about anything you want. Books, movies, comics, whatever. I don't care. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it wasn't too long. It's already too long as it is. But I really hope, again, that my passion sees me through. And what are some books that you would like to read before you turn 40, for my folks who haven't turned 40 yet? Let me know down in the comments. I would like to hear from you guys. And hopefully you won't go as rambly as I did. So, yeah. Like, subscribe. I forgot to almost mention this. I meant to say. Like and subscribe. And comment. As my buddy John Minton likes to say, it feels good when you do it. And comment. I like hearing from you guys. I like hearing your thoughts and opinions about the world. Just as long as you don't spout racial abuse or insult me or insult people I like, we'll be fine. You can comment anything you want. You can even curse at me and tell me I'm an idiot. That's fine too. It'll hurt my feelings, but it's okay. That's the free market. That's the free speech, baby. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. Oh man, how am I going to edit this down? Until next time.